Hello, my name is Thomas O'Connor, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Testing and Research in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality in CDER, and the Vice Chair of CDER's Emerging Technology team. And today I'm going to be talking about CDER's Emerging Technology program. For an overview of today's talk, first, I'll be giving an overview of the Emerging Technology program, ETP for short, describe some recent trends within the program, describe a life cycle of an emerging technology and something we call graduation, and then describe how to interact with the emerging technology program. First of all, it's, I think, helpful to put in context, what is the scope of the program? And the scope is kind of focused on innovations in pharmaceutical development and manufacturing, or kind of the area of advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing can cover novel manufacturing methods to improve process robustness and efficiency, but also novel dosage forms that can improve drug delivery, or novel analytical tools that can improve product characterization or in process monitoring and control. Why is the FDA interested about advanced manufacturing and more broadly innovation in pharmaceutical development and manufacturing? And that's because we've identified a number of benefits for patients. This includes producing better quality medicine, so having processes that are more robust and efficient can help reduce defects. A lot of these innovations really reduce the size of the manufacturing facility and can help reduce capital and operating costs for making drugs. It can help speed the drugs development by eliminating bottlenecks such as scale up and tech transfer. It can help prevent drug shortages by reducing the issues related to quality. And having a sector that's more agile and flexible to respond to changes in product demand can really help improve emergency preparedness. To really facilitate the adoption of advanced manufacturing within the pharmaceutical sector, CDER has developed a number of programs that work together. This includes efforts related to policy that you'll hear about later in today's seminar, including the framework for regulatory advanced manufacturing evaluation and international guidances such as ICHQ 13. We also support the development of science through our research program that really helps address critical questions related about the technical adoption of these technologies. And you'll hear from case studies later today in today's symposium as well. Today's talk, I'm going to focus on our assessment and inspection programs, most notably the Emerging Technology Program. Well, what is this program? Well, this program has actually been around since 2014, and it's really focused on supporting the adoption of innovative approaches to pharmaceutical product design and manufacturing. It's a cross-functional team that consists of members from all the relevant FDA quality review and inspection programs related to quality. So that's Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, Office of Compliance, Office of Regulatory Affairs, to really give that one quality voice around innovations. How does the program work? Really, the program at its core, it provides an opportunity for industry and the FDA to collaborate early, discuss and identify any potential technical and regulatory issues. So there's less regulatory uncertainty about adopting these technologies. So what are the program's objectives? First, it serves as that centralized location for those external inquiries, so stakeholders know where they can reach out to the agency to get feedback. Provides that early forum for early engagement. And early engagement helps to identify and evaluate potential roadblocks or potential issues early so that they can be resolved before an application is even submitted. The program also is designed as a series of interactions, throughout the development lifecycle. That helps to ensure consistency and continuity and predictability in the feedback stakeholders get through the process. And as the technology matures, aspects of the program focus on facilitating knowledge transfer both within the FDA and to external stakeholders, and that can help establish scientific standards and policy as needed. ETT really takes a collaborative approach, both internally within the FDA and CDER, as well with external stakeholders. The same emerging technology team representative will be involved in the entire process that helps provide that continuity. And we try to keep the composition of the root team likely throughout the same throughout this entire process as well. And this process starts again in that early engagement stage. It can include things like an emerging technology site visit, which we found to have been very helpful for both the FDA as well as external manufacturers. And these are non-inspectional visits, which allows more in-depth interactions between regulators and sponsors looking to implement these emerging technologies. But then it continues on through the integrated quality assessment, which the ETT will participate in, and ETT SMEs can participate also in the pre-approval inspections. As you've noted, the program has been around since 2014, and throughout that time, we've accepted over 140 proposals at this point to the program. We continue to see a strong interest in the program. The numbers for 2023 represent 3/4 of the year, and we're kind of on track to, again, come in with that around the high teens, a number of proposals accepted in the program for this year. But what kind of technologies are being submitted to the program for feedback? Most notably, we have a lot of interactions and engagement around continuous manufacturing. I think that's a pretty well established at this point. But there's also a range of other technologies that sponsors are looking to implement to improve product quality. That can be analytics, or modeling and simulation tools, or even the mode of manufacturing, such as distributed manufacturing. There have been over 21 successful approved applications that have gone through the program since it started in 2014. And you can see a lot of the early years since it's focused on early engagement, it takes time for those applications to mature to be submitted as a regulatory application, eventually approval. But you can see we have consistent numbers of approvals every year at this point through the program. Some recent trends that we've noted in the program, again, noting that we've had a lot of interaction around continuous manufacturing. I say the early focus on that was in the solid oral drug space, where we have a lot of experience. But we've also seen move to more complex products that are really utilizing these process intensification technologies, including continuous manufacturing, and most notably in the kind of biotechnology space. Seeing a growing use of modeling and simulation, both within the context of continuous manufacturing, but also in other modes of manufacturing to really support pharmaceutical development, as well as manufacturing, as well as in process and process controls. There's also a lot of technologies being applied to sterile products. These include new novel technologies for making those products, as well as the modes of manufacturing for those products. Another recent development for the program was that in the 2022 FDA and Drug Omnibus Reform Act, FDORA, it actually established the Emerging Technology Program in statute. And if you leave the conditions in that statute really describe this early interaction program that involves stakeholders early to resolve potential regulatory issues, which is kind of a bedrock of the Emerging Technology Program. The statute does require the FDA to issue and update guidance to facilitate adoption of advanced innovative approaches and really address regulatory requirements related to develop or review, including post-approval changes. We're also continuously focusing on improving the program, and we have a number of internal activities to help enhance the program. That includes creating and implementing a communication plan to really share information as much as we can about the program with industry. We're updating our governance structures to really support program operations, really focusing on performance measures so we can make sure the program is delivering on its objectives. We have standardized the intake process to really help manage participation requests, especially as we continue to get more and more requests from industry. We need to make that process as efficient as possible so we can scale up the program, and really also identify new opportunities for engagement with stakeholders and the pharmaceutical industry. And that includes with international regulators, which we know is a key issue related around innovations in pharmaceutical manufacturing, promoting that harmonization. And earlier this month in October, the Emerging Technology team participated in EMA's Quality Innovations Group Listen and Learn sessions. It's kind of an example of that outreach and additional engagement with stakeholders. ATP life cycle at a glance. So emerging technology really also has its own life cycle, right? It starts with industry developing that technology, identifying where it can provide value and improve product quality. During that development phase, there may be identified questions that they would like feedback from the agency on. And that really kind of starts this interaction with the emerging technology program. But as the technology matures, at some point, it's no longer emerging, and the FDA has maybe had gained multiple experiences through the program with multiple sponsors, and hopefully seen this technology emerge into actual commercial productions, making commercial products. At that point, the technology is really ready to graduate the emerging technology program. Well, why is graduation important? Well, it indicates, first of all, that FDA has gained sufficient experience with this particular technology. It's really confident in the ability of industry to submit successful future applications, right? So it's a really signal that this technology has matured, it's being used commercially, and it's we have full confidence in its ability to for industry to kind of adapt it. By transferring the responsibility for the graduate technology to other the other review offices, ATP has more bandwidth to accept the next emerging technology to keep pace with industry innovation. And with more assessors trained to review the graduate technology, FDA can review more applications that incorporate it while continuing to meet user fee goal dates. One example of this is continuous drug compression, which ATP graduated in 2021. But it's not just as easy saying, oh, it graduates, right? There has to be a knowledge transfer piece related to this, where the emerging technology program develops tools and training to prepare this transition from the program to the other assessment programs, traditional assessment programs, to review future applications, right? And technologies it's a little bit nebulous, so we really work on defining our experience band. So when we say continuous direct compression, well, what do we mean by that? What kind of drug products have we seen? What kind of control strategies have we seen? And so part of this graduation experience is defining our current experience bands. If reviewers see an application that maybe involves a novel control strategy, or it applies to a novel type of product, that may be outside of our experience bands, then maybe that's an appropriate application to be involved in the emerging technology program. Well, what impact has all this had on assessment? Well, our colleagues in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality actually conducted a self-audit on these continuous drug compression applications, because we've had a number of those, and compared them to similar batch applications that were submitted around the same time. Because one of the hurdles we hear from, or concerns that we hear from industry about adopting innovations in general, is impact on review and assessment timelines, and any delays in that regard would be really influence decision making. So what this audit actually found was that CM applications actually had shorter times to approval and marketing compared to those similar batch applications. So 3 months faster approval and 4 months faster to marketing. And if you looked at those products, that would translate into really early revenue of in the hundreds of millions of dollars range. So what factors influence that? So notably, some of these were product-specific factors, such as whether those were a lot of those products were breakthrough, etc. But from the ETT perspective, I think it really also, highlights the impact of early engagement to really resolve those issues even before the application is submitted, right? So that really facilitates the application assessment. And then there's that technology factor, continuous manufacturing with that, either no or minimal scale up, support really makes tech transfer easier. So I think that helps really support that getting to market faster. We also look not just at time to approval or time to marketing, but also other regulatory issues such as post-approval changes or findings on pre-approval inspections, and really found no difference between the CM applications and the batch applications. Well, now I'll just conclude with some frequently asked questions about engaging with the emerging technology program. So first, how to apply. You can really supply really can start early in development, even without a potential drug candidate identified. The ETP guidance really kind of outlines the procedures for engaging with the program, so we recommend you follow that guidance and submit a proposal to the program. And in that proposal, a couple of key things that need to be really addressed is really specifying, communicating how the technology is both novel and how it improves product quality. So engaging with the Emerging Technology Program. Well, who can participate? Really, the program is open to companies that intend to include a novel technology as a regulatory submission reviewed by CDER. Does the submitter need to wait till molecules identified, or does the submitter need to wait until regulatory submission, like an IND, is filed before joining? And the answer is no. A group or a company looking to adopt a novel technology, maybe it's a technology that can apply to multiple different types of products, right? So maybe you don't have a specific molecule identified yet, but as long as it meets the criteria, it can be, you can submit to the Emerging Technology Program. And again, that's going to happen before, an IND or other regulatory application is submitted. What's the right stage? We often get this question, what's the right stage, to engage with the program? And really, waiting is not needed to engage with the program, right? So because the programs aren't really designed to be a single interaction, rather ideally a series of engagement throughout the technology development. And we realize that questions that a company might have or need feedback on can really evolve as the technology develops. How will the program at the ETP be notified, when of an emerging technology within a regulatory submission? So if the technology has been part of previous engagements with the ETP, the ETP will be included in those future interactions. And it's really helpful to reference the participation in the Emerging Technology Program in the cover letter of the submission and to notify the ETP mailbox upon submission. That really makes sure that we stay connected with that application. What types of products is the ETP available for? And it's really appropriate for really any molecule that's really regulated by CDER. So this can be new molecules, legacy products, so commercial products already on the market. It can be both small molecule and large molecule. What's the criteria? So just wanted to highlight acceptance is not guaranteed, right? The ETP limits the acceptance of program that really meets those fundamental criteria, right? That's this technology is likely to advance pharmaceutical quality, and with which we've had limited prior experience and knowledge. Process technology in the plan, again, that process technology must have that potential, right, to improve product quality. So this, I just like to conclude that really the Emerging Technology Program really serves as a centralized location for external inquiries about novel technologies, and really fosters early engagement, right? That can really eliminate potential roadblocks or hurdles early before even an application is submitted. And then as technology has its own life cycle and as it matures, it can actually even graduate the program, and I think that has signifies that technology is really ready for broad adoption. To request participation in the program, sponsors can develop proposals. Important that those proposals really describe the technology, explain why it's novel and how it improves product quality, and describe any development plan or implementation roadblocks already identified. Additional procedures and information on the program can be found at the ETT website and in the ETT guidance. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have during the panel discussion. Thank you.
I'm happy to be with you today to talk about CDER's FRAME initiative. I'm Adam Fisher, Director of Science Staff in CDER's Office of Pharmaceutical Quality and lead of the FRAME initiative. At the last Pharmaceutical Quality Symposium in 2021, I first introduced the FRAME initiative to the public. Today, I want to share and reflect on what we've accomplished since then, and also explain what we hope to accomplish still. First, let me explain briefly where the FRAME initiative fits into CDER's efforts in advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing. CDER has long supported advanced manufacturing through various programs, including these three key ones. The Emerging Technology Program focuses on supporting developers of new technologies and potential applicants through the regulatory assessment and inspection functions. CDER's Advanced Manufacturing Science and Research Program fuels intramural and extramural research that establishes the knowledge base that enables us to do our job as regulators. Then we have CDER's FRAME initiative, which focuses on the policy elements and regulatory framework for advanced manufacturing. These programs are all connected through coordination and leadership support. Now let's dive in on FRAME. It stands for the Framework for Regulatory Advanced Manufacturing Evaluation. This initiative exists because we are establishing a regulatory framework that provides clarity and reduces uncertainty for products manufactured with advanced technologies. We're being proactive in addressing the regulatory framework for current and future manufacturing innovations. And we're not doing this for fun. We're doing it because advanced manufacturing technologies have the potential to improve the reliability and robustness of the manufacturing supply chain. We want to increase timely access to quality medicines for Americans and prepare a regulatory framework that could bring benefits to patients. Also, we're doing it because we have to. Through the Emerging Technology Program, we've seen a rapid development of advanced manufacturing technologies, especially since the public health emergency. If we waited to address the framework until we saw new technologies in regulatory applications, it would be too late. To simplify our approach as much as possible, we have 4 priorities, which are to seek and analyze input, address risks, clarify expectations, and harmonize internationally. You may have seen us releasing issue-specific papers for the public and hosting stakeholder engagements. We're taking a look at our regulations and policy as well as our IT system for their flexibility and capacity to handle new technologies. We're also taking a look at our existing guidances and working on some new ones to explain FDA's current thinking on regulatory issues. Ultimately, we want to collaborate and harmonize with our international partners to ensure that global regulatory practice is clear to stakeholders. And once we got started doing this, we began to realize how much of the regulatory framework we share across FDA centers and the importance of working together to realize a cohesive regulatory framework for drugs. This is a high-level look at what we've done for the regulatory framework since I first introduced this initiative in 2021. We released one guidance, and it was a big one. We worked with other global regulators in the International Council of Harmonization, or ICH, to develop and implement the Q13 guidance for continuous manufacturing. More on that in a few minutes. We also published 2 discussion papers on 2 technologies and solicited public comments for each. We held 3 public workshops to engage stakeholders in discussing advanced manufacturing, distributed manufacturing, and artificial intelligence. With more still coming in, we've received comments from more than 60 stakeholders, and we've engaged more than 400 stakeholders at our workshops. And it's been valuable. It has honed and sharpened our thinking on manufacturing innovations. If we tried to address every possible advanced manufacturing technology at the same time, we would almost certainly fail. One of FDA's initial investments into FRAME was funding a series of workshops at the national academies to identify innovations CDER is likely to encounter in the next 5 to 10 years. These workshops culminated in NASEM's report on innovations in pharmaceutical manufacturing on the horizon. And from this report, and through our engagements in CDER's Emerging Technology Program and CBER's Advanced Technologies Team Program, we prioritized 4 advanced manufacturing technologies. There is end-to-end continuous manufacturing, which entails an unbroken continuous connection between drug substance and drug product manufacturing. There's artificial intelligence, which has just exploded in popularity within the past year. And finally, there are distributed manufacturing and self-contained distributed manufacturing, the latter of which might, for example, allow for expanded drug manufacturing at the point of care. As you can imagine, these technologies challenge the current large, fixed location, traditional manufacturing paradigm, and by extension, the regulatory framework. Let's first look at end-to-end continuous manufacturing and some of the developments in that area. As I mentioned earlier, FDA's final Q13 guidance on continuous manufacturing of drug substances and drug products, published in March of this year. This guidance describes scientific and regulatory considerations for the development, implementation, operation, and lifecycle management of continuous manufacturing. Internationally harmonized guidance is not easy to do, but ICH Q13 dedicated an entire annex to integrated drug substance and drug product continuous manufacturing. It describes an example of an integrated process for a small molecule tablet and addresses some of the key issues, such as drug substance and product specifications, process control, and drug substance stability testing. My hat's off to everyone who helped develop this important Q13 guidance. Believe it or not, at this time last year, most of us had not yet heard of some of the AI terms that we now take for granted. ChatGPT, OpenAI, generative AI, take your pick. The public awareness and the use of AI has just exploded in the last calendar year. I'm happy to say that we had already been working on AI in drug manufacturing, which allowed us to release a discussion paper on the subject for public comment in March. This discussion paper is laser focused on AI's application in drug manufacturing and it addressed key issues such as cloud applications and data oversight, the sheer amount of data that might be generated, where regulatory oversight begins and ends, standards for AI models, and the challenges that we face as regulators. At the end of September, we held a 2-day workshop with the Product Quality Research Institute to talk through some of these critical issues with the stakeholders who are actually developing and implementing these technologies. To be as collaborative as possible, we have reopened comments for the AI discussion paper until November 27th. You are all welcome to provide your comments on these and other issues. Most importantly, I think these engagements were successful, and I say this because they've already made us change our thinking in certain areas. I want to spend most of the rest of my time here talking about distributed manufacturing because there are some very new developments in this area. Simply put, distributed manufacturing is a decentralized manufacturing strategy with manufacturing units deployed to multiple locations. Then there is a subset of distributed manufacturing, so-called self-contained distributed manufacturing, which might, for example, entail manufacturing at the point of care. I just said that there were some new developments in this area, so let me talk about the newest. Just today, we released our new white paper, Distributed Manufacturing of Drugs, Stakeholder Engagement and Action Plan. This paper summarizes what we heard from stakeholders regarding distributed manufacturing technologies and what FDA plans to do and continue doing to help foster the adoption of these technologies. You can now find this paper on the FDA Frame website. I want to explain what you'll see in this new paper. It summarizes stakeholder feedback related to terminologies, pharmaceutical quality systems, applicants and operators, establishments, changing and adding the location of manufacturing units, inspections, the considerations for meeting specifications, and then also how distributed manufacturing might relate to other regulated products and also might apply to international harmonization. You will see in this paper, and I will share it here as well. As I've mentioned, we're being very proactive and collaborative in our process. And this is a bit unusual for some. Most are used to seeing draft guidance, providing comments on it, and then seeing final guidance. To be clear, this paper is not a guidance. It is for discussion purposes only. It does not convey any current or future requirements, recommendations, or policy related to distributed manufacturing, but it does summarize what we heard from stakeholders, and it does share our action plan. So first, stakeholders noted that the term point of care describes a manufacturing location rather than a manufacturing technology. Stakeholders also felt that point-of-care manufacturing might not always be a subset of distributed manufacturing, that except for some applications of these so-called self-contained distributed manufacturing units, point-of-care manufacturing might not be intended to be part of a decentralized manufacturing strategy or entail the use of manufacturing units. Furthermore, point-of-care is an existing term used differently in several medical product areas. For example, healthcare providers might understand the term to mean the exact location where samples are collected or a test is performed on a patient. Others might take it to mean in the same building where patients are treated. So there's different uses of that term. This event, of course, is called the Pharmaceutical Quality Symposium, or PQS. So let me just acknowledge the fun in talking about PQSs at the PQS. So stakeholders supported the reasoning that a centralized PQS model might be essential to DM for CDER products, especially to ensure regulatory compliance. It seemed that centralized control over remote manufacturing locations might provide quality oversight by sharing real-time data through, for example, a digital network across a fleet of manufacturing units. And stakeholders proposed that PQS info might be provided to regulators in submissions and/or facility evaluations. An important question for distributed manufacturing is, who will the applicant be? Stakeholders noted that the types of applicants might be different among CBER and CDER regulated products. For example, a healthcare facility might be an applicant and responsible for complying with cGMP requirements for CBER regulated products, such as cell and tissue therapies. Meanwhile, such a model may be less suited for CDER regulated products, such as small molecule drugs or biotechnology products. A similar question for operators. Who will the operators be? Stakeholders suggested that traditional manufacturing personnel would operate most DM units. They might be trained and overseen by the centralized PQS responsible for operating a unit at the host site. Stakeholders stated that a centralized PQS could manage operator access, limiting operation to those who are appropriately qualified. And also noted that the operator responsibilities might differ between CDER and CBER regulated products. Stakeholders suggested that the operator of a self-contained unit for CDER products might be responsible for ensuring that the unit is used appropriately within validated operating conditions after completing appropriate training, for example. Others suggested that the operator of a self-contained unit for CBER products might be expected to perform extensive operations that might include testing or manipulation of raw materials or the manufacturing equipment. Stakeholders stated that current regulations might accommodate the registration and listing of stationary distributed manufacturing units. Stakeholders proposed various mechanisms for reporting DM unit locations, location changes, such as application supplements, annual reports, and updates to master files. However, some noted that using existing regulatory processes for frequent updates to an application could be a significant burden on the applicant and the FDA. Under the existing framework, applicants might need comparability, validation, and stability data for each new location of a DM unit. Some stakeholders felt that cloned or like-for-like manufacturing units and the data from across a network may reduce risks to drug product quality and therefore may justify the need for less evaluation data upon a unit's addition or upon its move. Distributed manufacturing will challenge the existing approach to inspections. It's that simple. The most common inspection model stakeholders proposed was the inspection of a centralized PQS site conducted on a risk-based frequency consistent with FDA's current procedures. Stakeholders also encouraged the use of alternative tools, such as remote regulatory assessments and advanced technology, for example, augmented reality glasses, for host site assessments. And then various models were proposed for inspecting manufacturing units. For example, as part of the pre-approval inspection process, or by being evaluated during the inspection of the central site. When it comes to self-contained distributed manufacturing, stakeholders felt that rapid, non-traditional approaches to release testing might be needed. Some examples they gave: advanced process analytical technologies to enable real-time release testing, modeling and digital twins for process control, and parametric and conditional release. There are some realities of manufacturing small batch sizes generally, whether distributed manufacturing or not. So stakeholders noted that the destructive end product testing of each batch may not be feasible for small batch sizes. They did propose other approaches, such as testing samples produced from runs performed immediately before or after a run producing material for patient administration. And of course, this run needs to be representative and predictive of the administered batch. And for the procedures for handling rejected material at host sites were not well addressed by stakeholders, though clearly physically detaining or destroying non-conforming product to prevent use might be critical. Several stakeholders made comparisons to existing products and how they could inform distributed manufacturing regulation, especially in self-contained units. For example, pet drugs and other radiopharmaceuticals. Though I would note that pet drugs have their own regulatory framework. And then as another example, processes could be used to train and qualify manufacturing unit operators and handle and investigate non-conformances, such as they do at pet sites. Of all the feedback received, though, the clearest is that stakeholders expressed the desire for international harmonization on regulating distributed manufacturing to facilitate adoption of these technologies. There have been examples in the past where manufacturing technologies were stifled because different regulatory bodies handled them differently. It is important to keep in mind that a manufacturer may have dozens of global regulators to deal with for a single manufacturing process. Allow me to begin the transition to what we are doing in Frame. These four things were clear from stakeholders. It boils down to: there are areas in which they seek regulatory clarity. They want assurance that regulations and policies are compatible with distributed manufacturing. They want to understand the regulatory expectations, and again, very clearly, they want international harmonization on regulating distributed manufacturing. Now, let me explain briefly how we are addressing these 4 points. Remember, stakeholders develop these technologies, not FDA. We have and we will continue to engage stakeholders who are developing distributed manufacturing technologies through CDER's Emerging Technology Program and CBER's CAT program, and will continue to visit development sites. We appreciate the stakeholder we have received, and we will continue to incorporate that feedback to inform our regulatory framework for these technologies. We will continue to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the regulatory requirements applicable to distributed manufacturing strategies for drugs and biological products. And we're also assessing FDA's IT systems to receive and store location information related to distributed manufacturing networks to inform our surveillance, facility evaluation, and inspection functions. We are also working on guidances to clarify areas of regulatory uncertainty. For now, you can see several of these guidances on CDER's public guidance agenda. These include considerations for complying with 21 CFR 211-110, and this relates to the use of process models in drug manufacturing. Another on approaches to meet CGMP requirements for distributed manufacturing. And another on the Advanced Manufacturing Technologies Designation Program. My thanks to all of my colleagues who are currently working so hard on developing these guidances. And lastly, FDA will continue to coordinate with international regulatory partners to promote the global adoption of DM technologies. Some of you may have just seen that a few weeks ago, a number of us went to visit regulators at the European Medicines Agency in Amsterdam to discuss the regulation of advanced manufacturing technologies and hear from stakeholders developing novel digital technologies. Following the great success of ICHQ 13, we look forward to doing even more international collaboration on advanced manufacturing technologies. Thank you for your time and attention in allowing me to present Frame's progress and introduce our brand new paper to the world. Even though the paper on distributed manufacturing is out, we will be continuing to seek input to help us implement a cohesive regulatory framework for this and other advanced manufacturing technologies. In the rest of this session, we'll hear more about the ICHQ 13 guidance and learn the impact of CDER's continuous manufacturing research. And finally, we'll have a look at AI research related to drug manufacturing. So stick around, it will be worth it. Thank you.
Greetings to our online audience. Thank you for dialing in from different regions and perhaps even different time zones. To orient people who are not familiar with continuous manufacturing, this presentation will start with some basic concepts relating to continuous manufacturing. I will be using the abbreviation CM to refer to continuous manufacturing. I will then go over the ICHQ 13 continuous manufacturing guidance, FDA's experience with CM, and end with some thoughts on the use of CM technology for generic drug manufacture. To start with the CM basic, in a continuous manufacturing process, input materials are continuously fed into the process, while at the same time, the materials that are already within the process are being transformed into product, and the product is being removed from the process. So material feeding, product formation, and product removal, all three things occur at the same time, although perhaps in different sections of the CM system. Now, this description can also be applied to some individual unit operations like tablet compression and spray drying, which are widely used in batch manufacturing processes. Individual unit operations like these are not within the scope of the ICHQ 13 guidance. The ICHQ 13 continuous manufacturing guidance focuses on the integrated aspects when two or more unit operations are directly connected to form a continuous manufacturing system. A batch process relies on equipment size to obtain the desired batch size. If a batch size increase is needed, the equipment size is scaled up. Large equipment, for example, a bean blender, has the potential for quality variability within different locations in the equipment. This spatial quality variability is a common concern in batch processes. In contrast, for a CM process, the desired batch size is obtained by continuously processing materials over time. The batch size can easily be increased by operating over longer periods without having to change the equipment size. There is no need for large equipment in a CM process, and we find that CM equipment is generally smaller compared to batch equipment. And the amount of material that is being processed at any given time is quite small. This is a significant advantage as we now have better control of that small quantity and can obtain consistent quality with minimum spatial or location-based variability. ICHQ 10 defines a state of control as a condition in which the set of controls consistently provides assurance of continued process performance and product quality. Maintaining a state of control is important for both batch and CM processes alike, and potential sources of variability are identified and controlled. Batch and CM processes share many of the potential sources of variability that are addressed by the control strategy. Since product is formed over time in a CM process, there could be a potential for time-based variability. When processes operate over long times, there could also be unplanned events. So the control strategy in a CM process needs to address the potential for time-based variability in order to maintain a state of control. Now, this is a type of variability that is not commonly encountered in batch processes. Since the CM system has multiple unit operations that are working or operating at the same time, there is a continuous movement of material from one unit operation to another. What happens in one unit operation is of immediacy to the other unit operations in the CM system. Understanding the process dynamics of the CM system gives us information on how the connected unit operations interact with each other, how they respond to variations in processing conditions and material attributes, how materials flow within the system, and the impact on the connected unit operations when a disturbance occurs in one unit operation. Process dynamics is very often characterized through residence time distribution. The general acronym for residence time distribution is RTD. RTD characterizes the time available for material transport and transformation. RTD is specific to each process, equipment and design and configuration, formulation components and composition, and the material properties, to name a few examples. So knowledge of process dynamics is fundamental to developing an effective control strategy for a CM process. For example, this knowledge can be used to develop a material feeding strategy, develop an effective in-process control and material monitoring strategy, help trace materials moving through the system, and help develop a diversion strategy when product quality is impacted due to a disturbance. And the ICHQ 13 training materials will include more examples and discussions on these topics. So with regards to the ICHQ 13 guide, it might come as a surprise to some of you that FDA's CM journey is now more than 13 years old. FDA recognized early on that CM has the potential to improve the quality, efficiency, agility, and flexibility of drug substance and drug product manufacture. There was a tremendous outreach to our stakeholders to get this technology adopted and implemented. As you can see, this outreach is still ongoing. Our recent experience with COVID and the numerous drug shortages we faced, particularly at a time when patients most needed the drug, highlighted how important it is to maintain an agile and flexible supply chain that can ramp up production very quickly when the need arises. COVID reminded us all that we have a collective responsibility to deliver quality medicines to people when they need it, and this is where technologies like continuous manufacturing can really benefit us and the public. When we first started to advocate CM, that was somewhere around 2010. I think the benefits of CM was generally recognized by our stakeholders. However, pharmaceutical companies work in a global environment, market products in multiple countries, and need to submit drug applications to different regulatory authorities. So the main concern voiced by industry was that the lack of international harmonization was seen as a major deterrent to adopting CM. Although the companies recognized the need for an ICH guidance, they were also concerned that there was insufficient CM experience to develop an ICH guideline. Over the next few years, our CM knowledge base improved significantly. There was a strong support from academia, including demonstration of CM feasibility, so a big shout out to our academic partners. There were key CM publications from academia, industry, and regulatory authorities. And several regulatory agencies like FDA and PMDA developed internal documents relating to CM. In 2015, FDA approved the first CM process. It was for Vertex Pharmaceutical's Orkambi, a drug indicated for cystic fibrosis. Orkambi was soon after approved in other countries. So due to this gathering body of evidence that showed CM was both feasible and that we have sufficient knowledge of this technology, the proposal for an ICH Q13 guidance was accepted in 2018. This is a picture of the ICH Q13 expert working group when we first met to start work on the guidance. The guidance is applicable to CEM processes for small molecules and therapeutic products. It's applicable to drug substances and drug products. It is also applicable for new products as well as existing products. By that, I mean post-marketing products and the follow-through generics. The principles in ICH Q13 can also be applied to other types of biologic and biotechnology products. The guidance covers key technical and regulatory topics that are CM specific, and the content is harmonized across all the different regulatory agencies and sectors that participated in the guidance. ICH Q13 does not address elements that are common to both batch and CM processes, so this is something to keep in mind as you read through the guidance. The guidance provides flexible approaches to develop and implement CM and is intended for use by both industry and regulators. Since the guidance had to address so many different types of products or modalities, for example, small molecules, biologics, drug substance, drug product, integrated systems that make drug substance and drug product in one continuous stream, the guidance was structured into two sections. The main body provides general guidelines that can be applied to any type of CM process or modality. The main body of the guideline has a range of scientific and regulatory topics, which I will cover in the next slide. It has sufficient details without being too prescriptive. At least we hope so. A series of annexes were used to give information that is specific to different modalities. The annexes also include regulatory content relevant to a specific modality. Annexes also contain examples to illustrate implementation aspects. As was mentioned previously, the content is harmonized across different regions. The main body of the guideline separates out the scientific information from the regulatory information. The scientific content is intended to help companies develop a CM process and understand some of the scientific principles behind CM. The regulatory section provides information on regulatory expectations and would help with preparing for a regulatory submission. The guidance also touches on some GMP and process validation aspects, as well as the recommended locations for CM-specific information. The ICH Q13 guidance was finalized in November 22. This is the group that signed off on the final guidance. An implementation working group was stood up in 2023 to develop training materials. So where are we now and what is coming next? The training materials are currently under development. The materials will include online modules with narrated slides and videos. They will cover several CM-specific topics that were identified by industry and regulatory agencies. Some examples are showing in this slide, and I'm not going to read them. We expect to complete the training materials in 2024 and roll out the training soon afterwards. So do stay tuned. Regarding FDA's experience, This slide shows the different types of emerging technologies in the FDA CDER's Emerging Technology Program. As you can see by the red circle here, the most number of projects are related to CM. As of today, CM appears to be the most widely used emerging technology that we have in-house. FDA has approved 16 CM applications as of now. 7 of these were original applications and 9 were post-approval changes. Most of the approved applications are for solid oral drugs. A couple of sterile drugs were approved, and we are now beginning to see the use of CM for small molecule drug substance manufacture as well as for biologics manufacture. From the FDA side, I can say that we have significantly increased our CM knowledge. This includes CM research by FDA staff, as well as through FDA-funded research, training modules, and we now have training modules developed with the help of our academic partners, and staff trainings, including hands-on CM trainings. So we have a lot of experience and knowledge on our side, and we are gaining more knowledge as we go along. I should also say that our FDA Office of Testing and Research has a very strong research program in many of these advanced manufacturing technologies. We have gained a lot of experience with continuous direct compression, or CDC as we abbreviate it. Since we have sufficient knowledge and experience with CDC, it is no longer under the CDER Emerging Technology Program. CDC processes with novel control strategies could still be under the ETP program. When we started on our CM journey, industry was concerned that CM would cause a delay in application approval, or there would be excessive regulatory burden. As indicated by the journal article referenced all the way at the bottom, we have seen no delay in approval, and we do not see any regulatory burden. Some of the CM applications that we approved include supplements that are under a 4-month review clock, and breakthrough and priority applications that have very short review timelines. We were able to meet all of these deadlines. With regards to facilitators, we do find that when a company adopts CM for the first time, a pre-submission site visit under the ETP is very helpful. At these site visits, we get the opportunity to understand what the company is doing. So we become familiar with whatever they are planning to do. And we are also able to give feedback on the GMP and regulatory aspects. So this gives the company an opportunity to address any observations that we have made before submitting the applications. During review, when there are outstanding issues or areas that lack clarity, we have found that pre-approval inspections and information requests really help to resolve lingering concerns and get to an approval. So this is just to inform you that not to be afraid of PAIs and IRs, because they are intended to get the application to an approval stage. We also see that each subsequent CM application from the same company is easier for both the industry and the FDA, as the company knows what to do and have a clear understanding of what the regulators expect in the submission. And it is true, practice makes perfect. This slide has several unconnected observations. There is interest in using other advanced manufacturing approaches and control strategies in CM processes. For example, we now see process models being used with CM, and these could also include digital twins. So I think this is a growing area of interest, that we are no longer seeing one single advanced manufacturing technology, but there could be combinations of technologies in one application. There is also an increased interest in CM of biotech products. Now, this is great news. Now, one of the drawbacks that biotech is currently facing is that the current methods available for in-process quality measurements take a lot of time and are not conducive to CM. So biotech needs sufficient tools, including PAT, to get real-time information on product quality. With regards to small molecules, even the PAT tools currently available for these small molecules could also be more robust and easier to use. So this is one area that I guess the equipment manufacturers need to focus on. CM produces a high volume of data. This data can be used in more productive manners than what we have seen. For example, the data could be used to support continuous process verification or continued process verification approaches. It could also be used for trending and predictive analysis so that potential problems can be resolved before they even occur. And yes, we do see a maturity of CM knowledge across industry and our global regulatory agencies as well as in academia. But despite the progress made, CM is still not a mainstream technology for the pharmaceutical industry. By that, I mean CM is not the first option that is considered when a company develops a new drug. This is, I think, my last section. CM has many advantages like improved quality, batch flexibility, intact supply chain, less likelihood of failures or drug shortages, no need for equipment size scale up, the ease of manufacturing stability batches, and so on, just to name a few of the benefits. However, we are not seeing the generic drugs adopting CM technology. This particular paper that is referenced here has also indicated that increased adoption of CM is also expected to lead to lower costs. So unfortunately, I think the generic drug industry has not yet tapped into these many advantages offered by CM. Although the business model for generics is different and there is already a large infrastructure in place for batch processes, yes, we do get that. Perhaps these advantages could be of benefit to the industry. We need to translate the benefits of CM to measurable business metrics so that we can understand when the CM business case is stronger than for batch. So we do need business case examples from industry, more publications on the topic. These examples need to be driven by the industry as we regulators and the academia do not have access to this information. Most importantly, we do need to engage business leaders who make the financial decisions. Our conferences are mostly geared to the technical and the regulatory staff, but I think the real business leaders and the decision makers need to be also involved. We also need to continue to explore avenues for decreasing the cost of adopting CM technology. So with that, I have some ideas or approaches that could be used to facilitate the use of CM by the pharmaceutical sector, including the generic drug manufacturers. So we now see CMOs, contract manufacturing organizations, developing CM capability. Now, CMOs that have CM experience could be used to develop and manufacturing and to develop and implement CM processes. The 2022 Prevent Pandemics Act, the acronym is PREVENT. The Prevent Pandemics Act authorized FDA to establish a designation program for platform technologies. Designated platforms are likely to bring significant efficiencies to the drug development, manufacturing, and review processes. Certain criteria and data requirements need to be met for designation of a platform technology. The program and draft guidance are currently under development, so I can't really comment on the details. But once the program is in place, it may be possible to establish specific CM platforms. I think a CDC platform could really be an easy win. Drug master files are normally used for drug substance, commonly used for drug substance in the generic drug industry. Drug master files could also be leveraged by companies, including the CMOs, for platform processors. So this is another avenue that needs to be explored further. Use of standardized equipment, automation would also help. That would give us some familiarity with what is being used, and so we know exactly what needs to be done. And similarly, developing CM processors and assessing these processors based on the ICH guideline would also provide standardized expectations. So in conclusion, there are no regulatory barriers to the adoption of CM. Finalization of the ICH-Q13 CM guidance underscores that global regulatory organizations are harmonized on the scientific and regulatory expectations for CM. Collaborative efforts from industry, academia, and regulators have resulted in increased CM knowledge across multiple regions. CM applications have been approved in many countries, and this further emphasizes the lack of regulatory barriers. CM is currently the most advanced of the advanced manufacturing technologies. However, the adoption of CM is still limited. There is a need to make a sound business case and engage decision makers on the value and benefits of CM technology so that CM is used by all sectors of the pharmaceutical industry. Thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, my name is Geng Tian. I'm a lab chief in the Division of Product Quality Research, Branch 3, Office of Testing Research, Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. My presentation will focus on continuous manufacturing to improve pharmaceutical quality, research examples, and opportunities. This is the outline of my presentation. I will start by delving into the fundamentals of continuous manufacturing CM and its regulatory considerations. Next, I will discuss the role of process modeling and simulation in the context of CM and FDA. Then I will highlight some of the latest research findings and development in the field of CM. Finally, we'll explore the potential of CM for generic drug products. CM is a modern approach to the production of pharmaceutical products that involves a continuous flow of materials throughout the manufacturing process. CM integrates multiple unit operations into a single continuous process. In continuous pharmaceutical manufacturing, raw materials are continuously fed into the system, and the process operates continuously until the final product is obtained. The process typically includes steps such as synthesis, crystallization, blending, granulation, and tabulating. Key components of continuous manufacturing systems include advanced process control. Those systems enable continuous monitoring and adjustment of critical process parameters to maintain product quality within desired specifications. CM offers many benefits. Some of the key benefits include reduced environmental footprint, improved efficiency, enhanced product quality, faster time to market, and cost saving. In March 2023, the FDA issued a final guidance titled Q13 Continuous Manufacturing of Drug Substances and Drug Products that describes scientific and regulatory considerations for the development, implementation, operation, and life cycle management of continuous manufacturing. Building on existing International Council for Harmonization ICH quality guidances, this guidance proposes strategies that account for scientific and regulatory considerations that impact CM. Those considerations include process dynamics, material characterization and control, equipment design and system integration, input material attributes, process monitoring and control, system operation, material diversion and collection, and real-time release testing in order to ensure quality product over time. For example, process dynamics should be characterized to understand how output material quality is impacted by transient events. This characterization could be done by determining properties such as residence time distribution (RTD). RTD characterizes the time available for material transport and transformation and is specific to the process, composition formulation, material properties, equipment design, and configuration. Additionally, understanding RTD and the process dynamics enables the tracking of material and supports the development of sampling and diversion strategies. The application of modeling and simulation is expected to see a substantial rise in the coming years. In November 2022, FDA released a public report titled Success and Opportunities in Modeling and Simulation for FDA. The graph illustrates numerous modeling and simulation approaches are being used to support regulatory decision-making across all FDA centers. Office of Pharmaceutical Quality (OPQ) has engaged in the development and assessment of process models. The landscape is constantly evolving in terms of frequency, the diversity of model types, and their intended uses. Advanced manufacturing has become a potential driving force for process modeling and simulation, thanks to data-rich process, availability of plant-wide information systems, and the implementation of advanced control strategies. OPQ is building up internal process modeling and simulation capabilities, such as continuous API synthesis and crystallization, and continuous drug product manufacturing. FDA has also funded a large and growing scientific knowledge base for advanced manufacturing through extramural research on topics such as process modeling and simulation. Our external research partners include Siemens, Rogers, RCP, Purdue, MIT, and many others. There are currently two major regulatory documents which provide risk-based considerations for establishing and assessing model credibility. The ICH Points to Consider document published in 2011. This guidance categorizes models based on the role in ensuring product quality and provides recommendation on documentation based on impact. It also provides high-level guidance on model validation, but doesn't differentiate based on model impact. In collaboration with the FDA and industry, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, ASME, introduced a guidance titled ASME Verification and Validation 40 in 2018. While this guidance was developed specifically for medical devices, this standard is considered to be general enough to be applied to other disciplines. The framework begins with identifying a question of interest, which describes the specific question that is being addressed. The next step is to define the context of use, which describes the role and scope of the model used to inform that decision. Then the model risk is assessed for the context of use. The model risk then used to establish credibility goals. The goals for credibility factors are used to plan the activities for establishing model credibility. Once the activities are completed, an assessment is performed to determine if the model is credible for the context of use. If sufficient credibility is not achieved, then the framework can be revisited and corrective actions may be taken. If sufficient credibility is achieved for the context of use, then the model can be used to inform that decision. Model verification refers to the process of confirming that the model is implemented correctly and then solved accurately. Model validation refers to the process of confirming that the model is an appropriate representation of the question of interest by comparing the model predictions with measured data from experiments. The collection of verification validation evidence includes verification studies of the code and calculation, validation studies of the model with a comparator, and the associated validation assessment. The first case study I'd like to highlight is the continuous synthesis of the drug substance carbamazepine, CBZ. In this work, CBZ was selected as a model drug product to explore the continuous synthesis process and to test the use of a validated PAT method. In addition to being a designated WHO essential medicine, CBZ is a good model drug for continuous synthesis due to challenges stemming from the relative low solubility of precursors and reagents, as well as polymorphism. A process flow diagram of the continuous process and a photograph of the experimental apparatus are shown in the figures on the left. The simulation of continuous stir tank reactor CSTR process helped to design and optimize the conditions for continuous synthesis with reduced experimentation. A three-dimensional surface plot of the predicted equilibrium conversion was first generated using the batch CSTR experiments, as shown in the top right figure. The predicted optimal conditions were then tested experimentally to demonstrate a high-yielding single-stage CSTR process in the bottom right figure. Experimental disturbance was demonstrated as further validation for the continuous synthesis model. In this experiment, a 1-hour stepwise disturbance for the ISP inlet stock was conducted, and the concentration profile was monitored. The experimental results of inline Raman and HPLC time points are overlaid on the kinetic model. In this case study, a continuous system was used to perform the continuous powder blending process. The system was configured to use 3 lossing wave feeders, 1 for each blend component. An AR probe was used to monitor blend composition at the blender outlet. This work investigates multiple aspects of the continuous powder blending process that may affect the RTD, including changes in book material properties and process parameters. The impacts of changing the disturbance amplitude and using surrogate API are also investigated. Additionally, several methods of RTD analysis are compared, including 2 of the most common types of disturbances used to establish RTD models. It is critical to understand of how process parameters influence disturbance propagation before making process changes when relying on RTDs as a control strategy. 13 spike tests shown on the top were performed with the formulation at various throughputs, blender speeds, and blender shaft configurations. Process parameters and interactions sorted by T ratio based on their influence on mean residence time are shown on the bottom. Addition of mixing elements to the center of the blend shaft resulted in significant increase to the blender mean residence time of the disturbance and decrease to the mean center variance. Increasing blender speed led to an observed decrease in mean residence time and increase in mean centered variance of the disturbance. A model of the process was then developed using discrete element method approach. The video on the left shows that during startup, 1 kilogram of particles with target composition was generated in the hopper at random locations. Then the particle fell by gravity into the blender where they were mixed and transported to the outlet of the blender. In the meantime, API, MCC, and lactose particles were continuously generated above the hopper at preset mass flow rates. The video on the right shows the behavior of particle flow during steady state. The validation of the DM model covered the full range of the operating conditions in the experiments. These figures show comparison plots between experiments and their respective DM simulations for blending runs. Overall, the results are in good agreement. In this slide, the effects of the mass flow rate on the RTD and hold-up mass are simulated for 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 kg per hour. As expected, lower mass flow rates lead to broader RTDs. The mean residence time decreases linearly with increasing mass flow rates, whereas the hold-up mass increases in proportion to the mass flow rates. In this case study, we developed a process model for a continuous direct compression CDC line for a low-dose formulation drug product. The process begins with constant feeding of individual raw granular materials into the blender using a loss-in-weight feeders. A total of 6 loss-in-weight feeders are used to feed the input materials into 2 blenders connected in series and a tablet press. In this slide, we performed sensitivity analysis in the risk assessment and identified potential process parameters and material attributes that affect critical quality attributes of the drug product. The results of sensitivity analysis show that API and excipients 1,2 density and their flow rates are significant factors impacting drug product quality. In this study, we developed an RTD-based flowsheet model to evaluate the effectiveness of in-process control IPC strategies for quality risk mitigation of a CDC process. In the model, an extract block extracts data required for the RTD from the input stream to the RTD block and pass other data to the auxiliary block. The generic RTD module takes the extracted data, such as concentration and the feeder outlet, as an input to predict in real-time composition of each formulation component in the exit streams of the blender and the tablet press. The proposed control strategy in this study includes setting alarm limits for the feeders when the fat concentration is out of specified range for specified duration. In addition, total mass balance at the feed frame is considered for the secondary control limits. Those limits are provided in the table. To evaluate the control strategy, 2 worst-case scenarios are considered. The figures confirm that the percent label claim meets an assay specification, indicating the IPC feeder limits are appropriate. It also shown that the feeder IPC limits are set conservatively, as corresponding maximum minimum concentrations in the feed frame are well within the feed frame IPC limits. In this slide, we'll explore the promising opportunities that CM presents for generic drug products. Approximately 90% of medicines used by patients in the United States are generic, but no generic medicines have been approved to use CM. One of the potential drivers motivating generic companies to be involved in implementing CM includes complex drug products such as implants, long-acting microspheres, and liposomes. One recent publication from FDA found that CM applicants had shorter times to approval and marketing compared to batch applicants, and there are no substantial regulatory barriers for CM related to manufacturing process changes and pre-approval inspections. In conclusion, the regulatory experience for advanced manufacturing is evolving. Our research case studies demonstrate how knowledge informs FDA policies, inspections, and reviews. Shared learning and open communication are key to advancing emerging technologies and improving product quality. Lastly, I'd like to thank my colleagues at FDA for their invaluable contributions to this presentation. I would also like to thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jayanti Dash. I am working as a research scientist in the Division of Product Quality and Research under the Office of Testing and Research. Today, I'm going to talk about AI in manufacturing of pharmaceutical products, challenges, and opportunities. The Division of Product Quality and Research are working on diverse range of areas, including analytical science, which uses different chromatography and spectrometry tools. We do experiments to do research on formulation science. We do research on advanced manufacturing areas, such as continuous manufacturing, where we have to use different PAT tools for process analysis. And we also do research on modeling and simulation areas where we generate in silico data for simulation purposes. So generally, we are infinitely generating data from operations, processes, or from data historians. And in most cases, people spend significant amount of time to cure the data, to prepare the data, and to analyze the data. And compared with the amount of data that we are generating, only limited data are being analyzed and acted upon real time. and that happens due to many reasons. Sometimes there are lack of connectivity, context, and transparency. For some data, we still need manual data preparation. Sometimes the generated data are fragmented and inconsistent, and data contextualization is required. Sometimes there are lack of knowledge between the group that are generating the data and analyzing the data. And still in many cases, we have automation struggle to pull and push the data from one platform to another. To gain insights from this big data, few potential solutions are digital transformation, data integration, or data contextualization for seamless data transfer, data wrangling, and analysis. So, how can AI or machine learning help? From the pool of various types of data that industries, manufacturers, academias, or regulators generate every day, the challenge is to transform the data into information. The generated data sometimes are unstructured, semi or quasi-structured, or structured. And machine learning application can either process and perform analysis on existing datasets, or can capture, process, and organize data to uncover actionable insights from unorganized data. In my next few slides, I will present two use cases to show two examples where we are applying AI for process control and monitoring and for product quality evaluation. The first use case that I'm going to present is the study of formulation design using machine learning applications. As you know, the pharmaceutical manufacturing formulation is a multi-step process where the active drug is mixed with all other components by considering the factors of critical material attributes and critical process parameters and become the final beneficial medicinal product. The benefits and constraints of the active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, valuable excipients, associated interactions, and manufacturing procedure are the four basic components for a successful pharmaceutical formulation. Therefore, a careful design of formulation and manufacturing processes can enhance the efficacy of new drug molecule, can reduce the adverse effect, can improve the bioavailability, and can reduce the off-target delivery. Since each drug has its own unique physicochemical properties, for a given material, there are a wide range of variables that need to be optimized during formulation development. Therefore, traditional approach of formulation development relies on iterative improvements such as trial and error in the experiment design. This often requires extensive resources and time for conducting in vitro and in vivo experiments to optimize the formulations and manufacturing processes and increase the cost and generate a large number of multidimensional data. Since AI has the ability to handle and predict large amount of multidimensional data, the AI-directed approach will definitely offer a clear advantage of first-track development of these efforts. In this work, we have developed an AI-assisted method to aid the analysis of polylactic-glycolic acid-based long-acting injectable formulations. Polylactic-glycolic acid, or PLGA, is a biodegradable microparticles that have been used as a long-acting injectable drug delivery systems from the past 3 decades. These long-acting injectable products are designed to deliver their cargo over extended periods of time and are used for prolonged therapeutic effect and become the ideal formulation strategies for treatment of chronic diseases. We have a comprehensive dataset of PLGA formulations from one of our previous FDA-funded research projects, where the collaborators have studied on different formulations. In their study, they have seen that solvents impact the three-dimensional morphological structures for the formulation. There are the laser scanning confocal microscopy images of showing how different solvents are impacting the surface morphology or topography for the same formulation as well as for different formulations. The dataset contains details of different formulations, corresponding manufacturing data, detailed surface topographical characterization data due to solvent changes, and in vitro release testing data. The machine learning methodology can be applied on this multidimensional dataset to find the significant parameters to predict the drug polymer ratio, formulation compositions, and to predict the in vitro release behavior. From our study, we have found that out of 61 variables, 9 variables are significantly impacting the in vitro release profile behavior. And those significant parameters include the drug polymer ratio, manufacturing methods, polydispersity index, solvents, and so on. This type of dimensionality reduction is necessary to better visualize the impact of the model input features on in vitro drug release values. We have also applied different machine learning models to predict the formulation compositions and drug polymer ratio. The overall predictive performance of each machine learning model showed good accuracy from our study. These graphs show the experimental and predicted in vitro release behavior for different machine learning models for different formulations. The predicted release showed a good match with the experimental release profile behavior. As mentioned earlier, the long experimental cycle and high-cost formulation development results small dataset in this area. Therefore, one main difficulty of formulation prediction is the lack of reliable and standard formulation data. So, this type of AI method may serve as tool in the future to help comparing the proposed generic products to reference listed drugs by analyzing feature similarity across different formulations. Such tool may also help addressing some of the unique challenges in determining the bioequivalence of long-acting injectable generic products. The second example is on product quality evaluation, where I will show an example of AI-assisted advanced imaging analysis for multivesicular liposomes. Multivesicular liposomes, or MVL, is a lipid-based drug delivery system which are composed of multiple lipid vesicles with internal drug-containing aqueous chambers. The architecture of MVLs allow encapsulating drugs with greater efficiency. However, due to the complex architecture of the MVLs, it is oftentimes sensitive to the manufacturing processes, and this challenges the design and development of appropriate in vitro release test method. Our previous work revealed that manufacturing process parameters such as emulsification time, shear rate, rate of solvent removals are having a direct impact on internal and external particle size dimension for MVL products. To study the impact of process parameters, we have generated different MVL products under different shear rates. And then we have captured the image of generated MVL products under laser scanning confocal microscope. The confocal images have confirmed that the internal and external size variations for different shear rates. Then, AI-assisted image analysis was done on confocal images to quantify the internal and external particle size distribution for different shear rates. This type of AI-assisted methods can also help reviewer to evaluate the sameness of generic products to RLD products. So, the applications can be many, but depending on the data sources, the digitalization of advanced manufacturing requires organization-wide adoption of innovative technologies, services, infrastructure, and software tools. Such adoption often necessitates overcoming substantial organizational and cultural barriers, demands integration of new AI tools, software harnessing data, and adoption of new organizational practices to be networked and interconnected. To transform the stored data into information, data contextualization is crucial to harness insights from the raw data. Contextualizing the structured or unstructured data helps to describe various attributes of the data and enable to understand, organize, and utilize data effectively. And finally, through robust data integration strategies and fostering a culture of data sharing and collaboration, manufacturers, regulators, or industries can harness the power of data-driven insights to optimize their process, enhance product quality, and can help the stakeholders and regulators to make effective decisions. And on top, it is important to maintain the data security and data privacy during this data flow from data generation to model prediction to ensure the regulatory compliance and to exercise data cataloging and fair data principles. As a closing thought, data silos occur across different stages of production process, including design, production, quality control, and supply chain management. The lack of seamless data exchange and collaboration among these domains can lead to inefficiencies and missed opportunities. And in order to fully leverage the potential of digital transformation, data silos, and transparency among manufacturers, pharma companies, and regulatory agencies are essential to maintain trust in every process step. Finally, I would like to thank my supervisors and mentors, Dr. Thomas O'Connor, Dr. Xiaoming Xu, and Dr. Michael Tian, and all the internal and external collaborators to continue our effort on AI applications on advanced manufacturing areas. Thank you for watching this video, and I will be happy to take any comments, suggestions, and questions during the discussion session. Thank you.
Thank you all for the great presentations. We're moving into our final Q&A panel, and we're giving our presenters and panelists an opportunity to connect their mics and also connect their video options for this panel. We have one coming on right now, Dr. Fisher. And to our audience, if you haven't had a chance to submit your questions into the Q&A chat pod, please do that at this time. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. All right, looks like we have just about all panelists on board, and we'll go ahead and start with the first group of questions directed to Dr. Thomas O'Connor. And here is the first question. Is there a link where we can find the approved ETPs, and do you have examples of aseptic technologies ETPs?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we do have a website for the Emerging Technology Program, where you can find a list of examples of technologies that have been accepted to the program, including ones for aseptic processes. So for aseptic processors, we've seen a lot of engagement around advancements related to isolators, robotics, and also a lot of interest and engagement around rapid sterility methods, which I think are key for these types of products as well. So that information can be found on our website and through engagements like this, where we present updated information about the program and our engagements. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have a couple more questions for Dr. O'Connor, and here's the next question. Have there been any approved proposals to use industrial, say the IoT or LOT, in advanced manufacturing, in particular to facilitate modeling and simulation?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We've I think you've seen a couple of the presentations. We've accepted a number of proposals around modeling and simulation into the program. So, those applications I wouldn't say are specific to IoT, the infrastructure, but really applications of modeling and simulation to process monitoring and control or process development. So, and we do have seen an approved application related to process control, through the Emerging Technology Program. A lot of the other engagements are maybe a little earlier on. We haven't got approval, but I think there's a lot of interest, industry using these tools, including process development, where we see, maybe supplementing or augmenting, experimental studies to really accelerate getting products to market. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for responding to that question. And we do have one final question in this round for Dr. O'Connor, and it is the following. Is the ETP open to contract manufacturers?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, we've had engagement with contract manufacturers. Even sometimes early engagement where maybe that's just with the contract manufacturer, or oftentimes maybe with the contract manufacturer and a client you're looking to implement an emerging technology for a particular product. So I think we are open to those proposals, and please reach out if you're in that sphere and you're trying to implement emerging technology that you think you have questions about, that you would like some early feedback. Submit a proposal to the Emerging Technology Program, and we can see if it fits within the parameters of the program. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to the next panelist, we've got a few questions coming in for Dr. Adam Fisher. And here's the first question for Dr. Fisher. Will there be another AI in manufacturing public workshop in the future, or was it a one-time event?
Thank you for that question, Ray. I'm going to give a little bit of a non-answer here and just say that we're thinking about it. We're thinking about whether we want to do another one, and if we do, what format it might take. I will say, though, I'll use this opportunity to plug the fact that comments are open on our AI and drug manufacturing discussion paper that is out now. So if you have anything that you want to tell us between now and December 27th, go in there and provide us your comment. You don't have to wait until we have a public workshop in order to tell us what you think. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Moving on to our next question for Dr. Fisher. What are the expected business outcomes of distributed manufacturing in terms of efficiency, quality, availability, and other KPIs?
Thank you for that question. It's a good one because sometimes we are asked why we chose the technologies that we did to prioritize in the FRAME effort. And when you make that decision, you have to consider the benefits of the technologies, right? So for me personally, when I look at distributed manufacturing, I think some of the key benefits are being able to be responsive to demand, and not only responsive to demand generally, but also potentially responsive to local demand. So if you had a distributed manufacturing unit in a region, or I think I mentioned in my talk near a hospital, you could envision being able to respond to changes in demand in that region or at that hospital. And I think there's a very direct connection then to being able to deal with drug shortage, to know that you have patient demand that potentially could cause problems and you have an ability to address that relatively quickly. I think another benefit just relates to diversity of manufacturing, right? So I think we've seen throughout the last several years with the pandemic with wars, with natural disasters, some of the risks that come from having manufacturing at one physical brick and mortar location. If something goes wrong, it can mean bad news for the supply chain. And so distributed manufacturing gives you more ability to have multiple geographical areas that may not all be impacted in the same way to maintain manufacturing in the event of a disruption of some variety. And then I also think another benefit relates to technology transfer, right? So if you have a fleet of manufacturing units, you can more easily transfer that manufacturing technology from one location to another without having to do some of the typical technology transfer hurdles that you'd run into for, again, large brick and mortar manufacturing at the larger scales. And so I think these are some of the benefits. There are others in the discussion paper if folks are interested in reading more. But again, from my personal perspective, I think those are some of the key ones for distributed manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. I have one more question for Dr. Fisher in this round regarding the emerging technology proposal. Can it be a proof of concept project or not?
So I'll acknowledge before I even begin my answer here that question might be better for Tom, since he spoke on the emerging technology program, but I did reference it a few times in my talk as well. So I'm happy to give my best answer here, and Tom, you can feel free to correct me if I've got any of this wrong. And I think the most important thing to know is that the emerging technology program is open for stakeholders prior to the submission of an application, and then I'd say even prior to the identification of a drug target. And it doesn't only have to be pharmaceutical manufacturers. There are other stakeholders who can be in that program. I think the term we might debate a little bit is proof of concept, right? Because I imagine we may have some graduate students in the symposium here today who are thinking of proof of concept in a very different way from what a pharmaceutical manufacturing company might be thinking when they talk about proof of concept. So I would say it needs to be mature enough that we can actually talk through the regulatory issues that we might run into as we collaborate towards getting an eventual application, and then working through some of those policy and assessment issues that we do. And I will say that this is not something that's sort of theoretical. There have been emerging technology meetings with companies who are in the earlier phases. Tom, maybe to you if I miss anything or mischaracterize there.
I think you touched on two great points. That the program is really open to that early engagement. You don't need a molecule identified. But then when we're talking proof of concept, you still need to demonstrate you meet the criteria for the program. So that's novelty. So, okay, it's novel, but that it has the potential to really improve product quality. So you have to have enough evidence to kind of make meet that bar. It is potential, but you need to demonstrate it's worth the time for the agency to engage at this point. And you need to have some questions that you're looking for feedback from the agency on, right? So that usually you're further enough along in the stage that you're kind of have enough evidence to meet that criteria, and you have questions, for the agency to kind of provide some feedback on.
Thank you for your collaboration on that last question. Moving on to our next panelist, we've got a few questions for Dr. Rapti Madurawe. And here is the first question. Are there any new or emerging PAT tools that you think will be critical enablers for continuous manufacturing?
We have seen currently, and we do see a lot of the traditional, if the word traditional can be used for PAT tools, but we see the typical PAT tools like NIR, Raman, and so on being used very widely in small molecule drug product manufacture. And I think where the critical needs really come on the biotech side. There isn't a lot of very good PAT tools on the biotech side to enable continuous manufacturing of biotechnology. We are beginning to see methodologies like multi-attribute methods, and also the use of surrogate tools. Some of these surrogate tools can be very common and typical tools like UV visual, UVVs, diode array, conductivity, imaging kinds of technologies being used to get information on product quality, but more work needs to be done on those areas. So this combination of these kinds of tools would really facilitate continuous manufacturing, particularly in the biotech and the drug substance manufacturing areas, where there hasn't been a lot of involvement or development yet. But I think that's where the real needs are. And thank you for the question.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have a couple more questions for Dr. Madurawe. And here is the next question. You mentioned the need for robust process analytical technology tools and in-process control methods for continuous manufacturing. What PAT and IPC capabilities do you currently see as most critical?
I think one way of looking at PAT and IPC tools is really to think about what are those tools used for and what information are we getting out of those tools, and is it fit for its purpose. And so a PAT tool that is or an IPC that is very critical for one process may not necessarily be all that important for another process. And particularly depending on how the control strategy is structured. If there are redundant methods or surrogate methods or other kinds of tools that are also giving information, then you sort of have to look at it holistically instead of looking at one PAT tool is more important than the other, but really focus from what is really needed for that particular process. Having said that, I do see a bigger role for tools or methodologies like process models, which are not really typically a PAT probe or anything like that, but they still do give a lot of information. So things like process models in combination with other measurement methods, I think are very powerful enablers for continuous manufacturing. And I do see a big future in the use of these types of technologies.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have one more question for you, Dr. Madurawe, and it's the following. Whilst you say there are less regulatory barriers than industry might expect, in your opinion, how likely or feasible is CM for low volume generics? Will manufacturers have to choose to consolidate their product range for conditions such as pain relief, depression, hypertension, etc.?
So I think I would like to point out that many of the continuous manufacturing applications that we have seen so far have been for very low volume drugs, like some of these oncology drugs. Populations are very small, the volume is small, and getting the drug out continuous manufacturing has really facilitated in getting some of these drugs out to the market very quickly. So I do see a future for using continuous manufacturing technology for low volume drugs. Ultimately, all of these are business decisions. And I don't really know what the business drivers are for generic drugs, how they structure their portfolios around. But the volume of the drug, at least from what we have seen on the new drug side, has not been a deterrent for adopting continuous manufacturing. In fact, it has made it very easy for these drugs to get to the market. And another benefit is that as the volume increases, when you add other populations over life cycle, it makes it very easy to accommodate those demands for increased production. And with regards to the second question, I'm not quite sure whether I understand what consolidating the product portfolios mean. Again, I would say whether you are using continuous manufacturing for pain relief or depression or hypertension, again, depends on the business needs. I think most of these drugs, at least all the common drugs that we have seen in these areas, are inherently amenable for continuous manufacturing. But whether or not a generic company chooses to do continuous manufacturing for production really depends on the company business metrics and capabilities and so on. But certainly, we really encourage companies to use these technologies for giving better quality, more reliable supply chain, and all the benefits that come along with continuous manufacturing. They can be applied to generic drugs, and we really support the use of these technologies by the generic drug industry.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist, we've got a few questions that came in from Commander Michael Tian, and here's the first question. Has the FDA evaluated continuous crystallization with regard to chemical and polymeric purity?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so Office of Pharmaceutical Quality has been conducting intramural research projects on continuous crystallization since 2014, and we have published several publications related to continuous crystallization with carbamazepine with the model drug. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have a few more questions for Commander Tian, and here's the next one. What are the pathways to apply for FDA-funded extramural research projects?
Thank you for the question. So FDA supports extramural research through various grant programs and contracts. For example, FDA research grants are announced through grants.gov. That is a central portal for federal grant opportunities. And FDA also utilizes broad agency announcements, BAs, as pathway for funding extramural research projects. So BA are a contracting mechanism to solicit research proposals for various research activities. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have a couple more for Commander Tian, and here's the next question. What are the purposes for FDA to conduct internal research on continuous pharmaceutical manufacturing?
Thank you for the question. So FDA's intramural research on continuous manufacturing is part of its broader commitment to advancing science, technology, and regulatory oversight to meet the evolving needs of the pharmaceutical industry and protect public health. For example, one of the primary goals is to identify regulatory gaps so we can better prepare ourselves to evaluate submissions using continuous manufacturing technologies while staying current with industry advancements. Another primary goal is to develop regulatory guidance and standards. Those regulatory documents can establish best practice and standards that ensure pharmaceutical quality using continuous manufacturing technologies. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We do have one more for Commander Tian, and here it is. What are the incentives for generic drug makers using continuous manufacturing?
Thank you for the question. From the agency's recent publication, where Adam is the leading author, it shows that CM applicants had shorter times to approval and also marketing compared to batch applicants. Also, there are no substantial regulatory barriers for continuous manufacturing related to manufacturing process changes and pre-approval inspections. So generic drug makers can leverage those advantages as well. And continuous manufacturing can open doors to innovation and development of complex drug products. This also allows generic drug makers to explore new opportunities and improve their competitiveness in the market. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist, we have a few questions coming in for Dr. Giante Das, and here's the first question for Dr. Das. How might AI assist with handling and leveraging the large volumes of process data from advanced manufacturing methods like continuous manufacturing?
Thank you for the question. That is a great question. So AI can leverage large volume of data by enabling real-time data analysis, predictive maintenance, and advanced control strategies. As process development and scale-up are laborious and time-consuming, and as Dr. Michael Tian has mentioned in his presentation, that continuous manufacturing are already using mathematical models to mimic process behavior and reduce the number of wet lab experiments. So in the future, self-training neural networks can combine new empirical knowledge with chemical and biological laws to produce and can continually improve in silico toolkits. And this type of in silico toolkits can predict the outcomes of experiments and may provide data-driven methods to expedite design decisions. And other type of AI methodology, for example, the natural language processing, can be used for pattern recognition from large volume of data. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Our next question for Dr. Das is the following. What is the future of CMC and how is industry changing? And finally, what are the biggest challenges we face?
Thank you for this question. This is an excellent question and it open. So even though from the past decade, the CMC research studies have started to embrace advanced analytics, data science, digitalization, automation, and other technical and industrial developments, but still now the function has some way to go on its modernization journey. Too often, legacy processes, unstructured data, or lack of standards or siloed data, as I have mentioned in my presentation, prevent companies or regulators from realizing the full potential of novel digital tools, processes, and working methods. So definitely these are some of the challenges that CMC is encountering currently. And the acceleration of pharmaceutical development is putting CMC more frequently on the critical path. As the cycle times for drug development shrink in response to innovative trial designs, optimized clinical operation processes, and expedited regulatory programs, CMC is under pressure to adapt its timeline and ways of working. So I think in the future, definitely new technologies are going to be introduced at a more rapid rate. And since the volume and types of data generated by the pharma R&D are exploding, so more data are being generated from equipment, prediction models, and networks of external partners and vendors. And so therefore, data governance and knowledge management will become more critical for efficient and compliant product development. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have a couple more questions for Dr. Das, and this is asking about AI with incoming of AI into industry. What suggestions do you have to the pharma universities with regards to their teaching programs?
Thank you. That is a great question. With the development of AI and machine learning capabilities, pharmaceutical manufacturing data has become a critical component for both pharma product development and regulatory submissions. And as companies access a wider range of external data sources, digitalize their workflow, and generate real-time data from automated equipment, sensors, and processes, these substantially increase the data flow. So the pharma companies and regulators should design the education teaching program and can develop the guidance in such a way so that it would help to increase the understanding to ensure how the data can follow the FAIR data principles, which are data findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. People need to understand how the effective sharing of data happens between different organizations organizations through the appropriate data governance models, how to work at a pace that meets the need of counterparts in the manufacturing R&D functions, and how to use the wealth of the data for the benefits of patients and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. And we have one final question for Dr. Das. And in relation to QMM and digitalization, what can be done more than in the past using 4.0 technologies in comparison what was enabled by the, for example, PAT FDA guideline in 2004? So what is different today?
Thank you for the question. Maybe the other panelists maybe answered that question better than me, but that is an excellent question. As you know, that QMM is a quality surveillance initiative to address how to best achieve quality objectives and how to improve manufacturing site quality, supply chain reliability in drug manufacturing processes. So FDA is keenly aware of the QMM impact, as Dr. Tom O'Connor has mentioned in his presentation, that 62% of the drug shortages are FDA has seen, and most of the time that drug shortages are attributed to the manufacturing delays and quality related issues. So the administration hopes to operate on QMM model that can withstand the disruptive shortages. It may never be a practical reality to prevent shortages entirely, but there is an intention to prevent the critical level impact that can come with them, as we saw during the height of the global COVID-19 crisis. So the Industry 4.0 or digitalization can initiate data-driven pharma risk management and can elevate quality beyond the base level of current good manufacturing practices. And that can be accomplished by adopting digital QMM software solutions, and can use various distributed quality methods to attempt to integrate quality throughout the product life cycle, rather than control the quality reactively at the end of the product life cycle when it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. We just had one last question come in for Dr. Michael Tian, Commander Tian, and here is the question. What challenges still exist in scaling up continuous processes from R&D to commercial manufacturing?
Thank you for the question. So one of the advantages of continuous manufacturing is that it often eliminates the need for traditional scale-up steps in the batch process. However, the challenges may still arise when transitioning from small-scale continuous manufacturing R&D setting to larger scale commercial manufacturing. For example, variations in the process, their variations in the process are common, and when transitioning from the smaller lab R&D scale to the commercial manufacturing. So managing and minimizing those variations is critical for successful scale-up operations in continuous manufacturing. And here we're trying to utilize those advanced process controls monitoring and data analysis, and to employ that and ensure that the process scale up is maintained. Thank you.
And thank you all for responding to the questions on our Q&A panel. And everyone give you a huge thank you for answering numerous questions that came in. It's now our pleasure to be joined again by Dr. Kapcha, the Director for the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, for some closing remarks. Please join me to welcome Dr. Kapcha.
Thanks so much, Ray. I appreciate that. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to deliver a few closing comments. What I'd like to do is to just take a moment to reflect on the presentations and panel discussions that we've heard over the past 2 days, and allow me to thank all our speakers and panelists as well. I'd like to offer special thanks to Commissioner Califf for actually delivering our FDA keynote, which was yesterday, and to Dr. Angelo DeClaro from the Oncology Center of Excellence for delivering today's feature presentation on Project Orbis. Many of our other speakers were from my Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, but several were not. And among them, I want to call out Alonzo Cruz from the FDA's Office of Regulatory Affairs, and Teresa Mullen from CDER. So thanks to both of them for taking some time to talk about inspections in the post-pandemic world and our international harmonization efforts. Perhaps most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for your attendance and engagement with us. We received enough questions to keep us going, apparently for about another two or 3 days, and I was impressed by the thoughtfulness of many of those questions. According to the poll on day one, this was the first SBIA event for more than 1/3 of you, and I hope that you'll be returning for more of these as well. We strive to come up with material that is valuable to someone attending for the first time, but we also have to temper that with being able to provide information for those that have attended several of these symposiums starting back in 2016. We do value your feedback, so please evaluate the sessions using the link that will be included in the post-event email. We set the stage yesterday with Neil Steiber delivering a talk on the state of pharmaceutical quality. We share data with the public every year in a report on the state of pharmaceutical quality, and we look forward to sharing it with you again next year. Our first session discussed how CDER assesses drug applications, which include facility evaluations. Technology is advancing in the industry, and it is no different here as well. The CASA technology has been changing the way we do our quality assessments for the better, and we will continue expanding that particular program as well. We needed innovation during the COVID-19 public health emergency, for inspections particularly, and we continue to use remote regulatory assessments moving forward. There is a very active pharmaceutical quality policy group that we have, and we use policy tools such as guidances to help industry and FDA get on the same page when it comes to manufacturing drugs. We also work with domestic and international partners to align on quality policy. Yesterday, we took a deep dive into ICHQ-12 with Commander Ramanathan, who presented key concepts from the ICHQ-12 lifecycle approach, such as controlled strategies and documentation. It's hard to believe we fit all of that into one day, but we did it, and we didn't stop there. Today, we learned about compliance and supply chains. Colleagues from CDER's Office of Compliance gave a few vivid examples of why we need to care so much about what we do. The stakes are high when it comes to drug quality. It can quite literally mean life or death. Today, you learned how we select products for sampling and testing and how we prioritize facilities for surveillance inspections. We also heard about the Developing Quality Management Maturity Program, which is one of the programs that's dear and near to my heart, that we encourage drug manufacturers to implement quality management practices that go beyond current good manufacturing practice requirements. Finally, we took a good look to the future for emerging technologies in advanced manufacturing. We don't care so much about advanced manufacturing because it's a cool thing to do so. We actually care because in some, but certainly not all cases, they might bring benefits to patients and consumers, and that's our first priority. Those in the audience today were among the first to know about a new paper on distributed manufacturing, one such advanced manufacturing technology that was just released today. So you actually heard some breaking news today. I ask one thing of you as you leave. Do not let the momentum stop here. We've spent 2 days passionately focused on the importance of pharmaceutical quality, and we've covered some ways in which everyone has a role to play. Now, please take these concepts and ideas back to your organizations and careers and make sure quality is at the forefront of decision-making where it should be. I know the last 2 days were jam-packed, but it's clear to me from the audience engagement that you care deeply about quality, as do I. I'd like to close by thanking some of the organizers of this event. These are the ones that work behind the scenes that really make all of the magic happen and bring all of this together for you virtually. In particular, I'd like to thank Erin Wood, Kimberly Monson, and Jeff Kelly, as well as Brenda Stoddard and Ray Ford of CDER's Small Business and Industry Assistance. So you have my heartfelt thank you for doing another outstanding job. SBIA always does an exemplary job planning and executing these events, and I appreciate our continued partnership with them in putting these programs together. Speaking of which, we look forward to seeing you in the audience at the next Pharmaceutical Quality Symposium in 2 years' time. Now let's start to continue working together to ensure quality medicines continue to be available to the American public. So what I'd like to do now is turn it back to Ray for some final housekeeping comments. Ray, back to you.